the evidence is here because People magazine, who has been typically Team Blake, has now turned. Oh man, Blake, you are in so much trouble. So much trouble.
How would you feel if your closest friends turned around and used you for fame or power? That's the unsettling reality Taylor Swift might be facing with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. From secretive court dealings to shocking allegations, this scandal peels back the glamorous veneer of Hollywood friendship.
You are so awful, and we were all right. Let's get into it. Before I get to the update, I got to update you, for those that don't know. We reported yesterday that Blake Lively's lawyer allegedly threatened Taylor Swift and extorted her to release a public statement in support of Blake, or text messages would be released. They also accused Taylor of Blake of asking Taylor to delete text messages. This was the original letter that was sent by Brian Free.
What could possibly wasn't the filing itself, it was the implications. Taylor isn't just a superstar, she's famously forums sharing their disbelief. How do you do this to your friend? Taylor doesn't deserve this. One furious tweet read, while another summed up the betrayal bluntly. Blindsiding your supposed BFF for your own gains? Wow, Blake. This court filing wasn't just a bombshell for Taylor. It was an earthquake for her fans, who have always seen her circle as an unbreakable group of trusted confidants. And then came the real zinger. Taylor's legal team reportedly had no knowledge of this move beforehand. They didn't just find this inappropriate, they found it shocking. Being pulled into court drama without any prior warning demonstrated how delicate even the tightest of friendships can be when legal stakes get involved. The ripple effect from this moment turned into a glaring spotlight, not just on the filed document, but on everything that had possibly gone on behind the scenes leading up to this. As whispers grew louder about how Taylor had been dragged into the case, questions started spreading even faster. What else might have been exploited to justify this move? With Taylor's history of drawing distinct lines when it comes to protecting her personal life, what unfolded next would raise even more eyebrows. Because, according to some allegations, it wasn't just Taylor's name that came into play. It was her words. And those private conversations? They might have been put under the microscope in ways no one could have predicted.
Look, the reality check here is Taylor Swift is no longer friends with Blake Lively. I firmly believe this. And the evidence is here because People magazine, who has been typically Team Blake, has now turned and says their friendship has halted. The singer wants no part in this drama. I mean, who doesn't believe this? If you're a Swiftie, how do you not believe this? Of course she wants no part of drama. She never wants part of, she likes to cause some drama. She does cause her own drama when she feels it's justified. And she shuts down drama with her lawyers and her reps all the time. We're going to get to that in a second, but let's go through what this source says. Insiders shed light on where the friends stand. We know where they stand. They don't stand anywhere near each other anymore. It's halted, a source tells people. The two stars are taking some space, but their friendship isn't completely over yet. I think that's a nice, like, stop this, Blake, end this lawsuit, and maybe we'll see. But Swift was issued the subpoena, and of course that upset her. The battle against Justin Baldoni continues. Multiple sources tell People exclusively that the actress's relationship with Swift is struggling as the singer faces a subpoena by Baldoni's legal team. I'll tell you right up, it was struggling when she read Blake Lively speaking about her friend in private and using her, labeling her dragon. That's a pretty hard thing to not see again. Like, whoa, that's what you think of me? I'm here to be your chess piece and you use me to get how you want. Oh, and then by the way, it turns out Justin maybe wasn't as bad as you kept telling me he was. And I'm seeing all this stuff come in and it clearly is more complicated. And now I'm being dragged in to this drama. Imagine being a friend with somebody like that. You would not want to be involved with that friend. You would look at them differently. Of course, that's what's happening here. So yeah, the friendship has halted. A source says close to Swift. Taylor wants no part in this drama.
What happens when a close friend takes your words, private conversations meant to stay between you, and uses them in court to their own advantage? Have hit particularly hard. Fans believe this didn't just shatter Taylor's image of her friendship with Blake, it had to have a profound emotional effect on her. And can we blame them? Trusting someone and then feeling like they've turned your own words against you is something that has the power to shake anyone to their core. Blake's team, however, has reportedly defended their decision by arguing that portions of these conversations were relevant to the case and necessary to support their claims. What exactly these claims involved is murky, but the justification itself has sparked furious debates. Was this truly necessary, or was it a calculated move to put Taylor in a vulnerable spot? The court filing wasn't elaborate, but the implications behind it were loud enough. It paints Blake's strategy as something far more personal than procedural, at least in the eyes of those watching closely. But here's the part that's even messier. Blake didn't act alone in this. Ryan Reynolds, her husband, is said to have played a role in escalating the situation behind the scenes. And if rumors are true, this brought a whole new player into the drama. A player who wasn't willing to stand by quietly. Travis Kelce.
I've never seen more people get what they want through the media coverage than these two. It's wild. But Brian Friedman responded to this. This was a letter where they, it should be noted, this was anonymously sourced and they're just abusing us again. And this is categorically false, blah, 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 blah. There's no evidence. Meanwhile, it's not signed by Gottlieb. It's not signed, I swear by, this is false. It was signed by Ezra Hudson, a different lawyer, not from that firm, which was odd to me. It was a big red flag. Well, if you're going to come out so fiercely and deny it, maybe get the lawyer who's being accused to deny it themselves? Well, Brian was quick to point that out. In his response this morning that just dropped hot off the presses, we write in response to this letter to strike our motion to ask the court to strike my letter. The letter was submitted in response to Miss Lively's consolidated defendant, Miss Reynolds, together defendants, on purporting to inform the court of their request to intervene in an action pending before a different federal court relating to a motion of Taylor Swift's company, Venable, to quash the subpoena served on them by my office. The premise of the motion is that I made a deliberate and shameless misinterpretation to the court and that the facts set forth in the May 14th letter are false and unfounded. That is not so. Attached here too, as Exhibit 1, is an affidavit executed under penalty of perjury, stating the factual basis for the statements set forth in my letter. Notably, the motion is not signed by Michael Gottlieb. I noticed that too, Brian Friedman, whose conduct gave rise to my office's influence on a subpoena to Taylor Swift's company, but instead by another attorney from a different firm representing Lively. The motion also faults the May 14th letter for being filed without support of any kind, much less anything under oath. This opposition supplies the sworn affidavit that Lively argues the letter lacked. Finally, and most notably, the motion claims that the facts set forth in the 14th letter are unequivocally and demonstrably false, yet is unsupported by any sworn declaration to that effect, much less from Mr. Gottlieb. So basically, he's like saying, well, okay, I just swore that this is all real.
Ryan Reynolds might not have been the one filing court documents, but his involvement in this mess was enough to add fuel to the already blazing drama. Behind the scenes, insiders claim Ryan played a key role in supporting Blake's decisions during the case, allegedly encouraging her every step of the way, even when it came to using Taylor Swift's private conversations as part of the evidence. While Blake was the face of the legal strategy, it seems Ryan wasn't just a passive observer. Sources close to the ordeal suggest he acted as both a sounding board and an active participant in escalating the situation, particularly regarding how Taylor's involvement was handled. But here's where things get even more explosive. Enter Travis Kelce. Known for his close and growing relationship with Taylor Swift, not only personally but also professionally, as they've been increasingly linked in recent months, Travis was reportedly furious when the news broke about Blake and Ryan's actions. According to insiders, Travis took matters into his own hands by confronting Ryan Reynolds directly in a heated phone conversation that left little room for pleasantries. Reports claim Travis didn't hold back, calling Ryan's behavior disgusting and reputations. If anything, it created a sense of momentum for Taylor's side to step in and take control. And when they did, what happened next only intensified the challenges Blake's team would face. If they thought Taylor Swift would stay silent, they were about to learn just how wrong that assumption was.
By the way, the father, he's had some run-ins with paparazzi where he's kind of manhandled them, just politely push them, throw some, glitter bombs in their face or whatever, Hey, look, you got to do what you got to do to protect your family, and you love to see it. Because here, this goes to show Taylor Swift, right? You think what you want about her. I think very highly of her. She's built a $1 billion business and an empire as one of the biggest, if not the biggest pop stars of all time. And she writes all of her own music. So, as far as I have to say, beat it, right? We're all Taylor Swift fans here, whether you like it or not. And by the way, because I always rant on billionaires, but there are some billionaires who, by the way, I feel like should be taxed at a much higher level because of their wealth, that got it in more ethical ways than others. And yeah, you could hate on her for all the jet fuel she burns traveling around the world. I get that. But none of that matters to this story. The point of the story is, listen, this is why Taylor Swift felt so abandoned and betrayed by Blake Lively, because she has to keep such a tight-knit circle because everyone's out to get her. She's like if you were the All-American Rejects times a billion, okay? Sure, they can sell out a backyard in, Des Moines, but Taylor Swift sells out stadiums, right? She is huge. She can't fly, Spirit Airlines. She has to fly private. She can't go places because she gets swarmed. She wants to give one person a photo, then there's a line around the block. It's insatiable how famous she is. By the way, for Donald Trump to say she's no longer hot because he said so is laughable. She could sell out any place in the world, right? She could be like, all right, I'm doing a concert at the Sphinx, and then a bunch of, Egyptians are going to roll up there on their, look, hey, how are you? So anyhow, the point is, King Tut's going to come out of his grave. Hey, I'd love to see you, big fan. So the point is that she's huge, and for Blake Lively to cross her, this at least is reinforcement that her father and her family have her back. Of course, her man, her boy toy, as it were, Travis Kelce, unfollows Ryan Reynolds. And this is a big, big story.
And by the way, I want to be clear. The reason why I respect this move is because it's his daughter, okay? I'm always going to respect a parent that is willing to burn it all down to the ground to protect their kid, okay? There's an element of that as a parent, real gonna recognize real. And Scott Swift played me. He saw me. Scott Swift saw me. Fisherman always sees another fisherman. He saw me salivating for these text messages. He saw me being like, we're gonna see the real Taylor Swift. And he was like, no, Candace, the world will never meet the real Taylor Swift. But what clearly set him off, given the timeline of you see a phone call allegedly coming in on February 14th, it would have been this extortion attempt. And I wouldn't try it. I keep trying to tell people, Taylor Swift's parents are not from nowhere. They're not nobodies. Scott Swift, what's his background? Stockbroker, okay? Her family was so financially successful that when their little girl said, I want to be a singer, they up and moved her to Nashville.
I think Candace and I have, very similar ways of thinking. I could imagine Candace growing up played with a lot of dolls by herself. She just, and I don't mean this as an insult, but she's kind of got that creativity where she puts together all of the pieces in her head. It's not always right, but it's not always wrong either. And this is a big bombshell moment. So go check out that full conversation that Candace, I mean, hey, look, say what you want. You don't have to agree with her politics. I certainly don't agree with probably I don't know, 80% of her politics, but I got to recognize game where I see it, right? She's able to talk through the camera to her audience as if someone else is there, and they're not, and good for her. So she, came back from maternity leave to talk about the parental urges to protect your kin. We love to see it.
When Taylor Swift decides to fight back, she doesn't just push reportedly left Blake's side scrambling, unprepared for the level of pushback they were facing. One of the key points Taylor's legal team delivered was about intent, specifically, how Blake's team had allegedly weaponized personal relationships to create the illusion of Taylor Swift's involvement. The lawyers didn't shy away from calling this out directly, labeling the move as both unnecessary and designed to generate public attention. They framed it as a cheap shot meant to distract from Blake's own legal issues by unfairly redirecting both media and public scrutiny toward Taylor. If that was the strategy, it seemed to backfire spectacularly. By the end of the session, the tide had clearly turned in Taylor's favor. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy hit another level. The fact that Taylor had hired powerhouse legal representation was a story on its own. Everyone in entertainment and legal circles knew she wasn't the type to let something like this slide. But the sheer speed and focus of her response still caught people by surprise. Articles speculated on the enormous influence Taylor was now wielding. reputations and lingering questions. For Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, the narrative of calculated moves and personal betrayals now overshadows their once polished image. Taylor Swift, though fighting back successfully, has had her trust violated and her private life dragged through public scrutiny yet again. It's a painful reminder of just how fleeting trust can be, even among close friends. As this case evolves, it leaves us wondering, how much of the celebrity relationships we admire are genuine, and how much are just carefully constructed alliances for reputation and gain?